The city lights blurred into streaks of gold and crimson as rain slicked the streets, mirroring the chaotic rhythm of my own life. I was young then, fresh out of university, burdened by ambition and a crushing student loan. One particularly brutal evening, the kind that gnawed at your resolve and chilled you to the bone, I found myself huddled beneath the inadequate shelter of a bus stop awning. The wind howled, whipping cold spray against my face, and the world felt like a vast, indifferent machine. It was then, amidst the relentless downpour and the hurried, averted glances of passers-by, that I saw him. He was an old man, his form a hunched silhouette against the flickering street lamp. His clothes, if they could still be called that, were a patchwork of threadbare fabrics, clinging to his gaunt frame. His face, etched with the deep lines of countless struggles, was a roadmap of hardship and resilience, yet his eyes, even from a distance, held a surprising, almost unsettling clarity. He shivered, a tremor that seemed to shake his very core, clutching a tattered, faded blanket to his chest as if it were his last defense against the world's indifference. His gaze was fixed, not on the stream of passing cars, but on the distant, pulsing glow of a neon sign, a beacon of a life he no longer touched. Most people hurried past, their collars pulled high, their minds preoccupied with the warmth of their homes, the demands of their schedules. They saw, or perhaps deliberately didn't see, the old man, a forgotten fragment in the city's relentless churn. But something in his stillness, in the quiet dignity of his suffering, a profound solitude that resonated with my own nascent anxieties, caught me. I had just bought a hot coffee and a pastry, a rare indulgence for my meager budget, the warmth of the cup a small comfort in the biting cold. Without a second thought, a spontaneous impulse that bypassed all logic, I walked over. He looked up as my shadow fell over him, his eyes, surprisingly clear and intelligent, meeting mine with an unnerving directness. A faint, grateful smile, a fleeting warmth in the harsh cold, touched his lips as he accepted the steaming cup and the paper-wrapped pastry. His fingers, gnarled and calloused, brushed mine, and for a fleeting moment, I felt a strange, almost electric current pass between us. We sat in silence for a moment, the rain drumming a steady, melancholic beat on the bus stop awning, the only sound breaking the city's distant roar. Then, he spoke, his voice raspy from disuse, yet surprisingly resonant, carrying an unexpected weight. "Kindness is a rare currency these days, young man," he said, taking a slow, appreciative sip of the coffee, its warmth seeming to bring a flicker of life back to his face. "It deserves a return." I shrugged, a flush of embarrassment rising to my cheeks. "No need, sir. Just glad to help. Anyone would." He chuckled, a dry, rustling sound like autumn leaves skittering across pavement. "Oh, but there is. I have no coin, no possessions to speak of. But I have knowledge. A whisper against the storm, a shield against the inevitable." He leaned closer, his voice dropping to a near inaudible murmur, forcing me to strain, to lean in, to catch every syllable over the persistent drumming of the rain. "There is a word, a sound, a vibration. A mantra. If ever your life hangs by a thread, if death itself breathes down your neck, speak it. Only then. Never for less. For it changes everything." He then whispered a series of syllables, strange and guttural, a language that felt ancient, primal, unlike any tongue I had ever encountered. It was a sound that seemed to vibrate not just in the air, but deep within my bones. I repeated it back, clumsily, the unfamiliar sounds feeling awkward on my tongue, and he nodded, a flicker of something profound, something ancient and knowing, in his eyes. "Remember it," he urged, his gaze intense. "And remember the warning. It is not to be trifled with." Then, as suddenly as he had appeared, a wraith-like figure in the urban gloom, he was gone, melting into the rain-swept darkness, a phantom of the city's forgotten corners. He left me with a half-eaten pastry, a cooling coffee, and a string of nonsensical sounds echoing in my mind, a peculiar secret shared under a stormy sky. I dismissed it, of course, as the ramblings of a grateful, but perhaps eccentric, old man. Life, with its relentless demands, its endless pursuit of success and stability, quickly pushed the encounter to the back of my mind, a quaint, almost dreamlike memory. Years passed. The corporate ladder had been climbed, rung by arduous rung. A family was built, a wife, 2 children, a comfortable life carved out of the city's relentless churn. The youthful idealism had softened, its sharp edges smoothed by the relentless grind of responsibility and experience. But still, the mantra remained, a distant, almost forgotten, echo, a curious footnote in the grand narrative of my life. Until that one night. It was a moonless night, the kind that swallows light whole, leaving the world cloaked in an oppressive, inky blackness. I'd taken a shortcut, a foolish, ill-advised deviation, through the old industrial park. It was a sprawling labyrinth of abandoned warehouses, their broken windows like vacant eyes, and overgrown lots choked with weeds and forgotten machinery. The air was thick with the scent of damp earth and decay, a chill that seeped into the bones, promising frost. The only sounds were the distant, mournful wail of a train and the whisper of the wind through skeletal trees. A sudden, muffled thud, heavy and sickening, followed by a low, guttural curse, ripped through the oppressive silence, snagging my attention. Curiosity, a foolish, dangerous thing that often leads to ruin, tugged me irresistibly towards the sound. My heart began a slow, hesitant thrum against my ribs. Peering cautiously around the rusted, corrugated corner of a derelict building, its metal skin peeling like dead flesh, I saw them. 3 figures, dark and imposing, their forms unnaturally large, silhouetted against the faint, sickly glow of a distant, flickering street lamp. And on the ground, a 4th, unmoving, a dark, crumpled heap that sent a shiver of ice down my spine. A cold dread, sharp and immediate, seized me, tightening its grip around my throat. This wasn't a mugging, this was something far more sinister, a scene ripped from a nightmare. The glint of metal, the casual, practiced movements of the men as they worked, the almost clinical detachment in their postures, screamed professional. They were burying someone. My breath hitched, a ragged gasp caught in my throat. My foot, numb with cold and fear, shifted. A twig, brittle and dry, snapped with an impossibly loud crack under my shoe, shattering the fragile silence. 3 heads, unervingly synchronized, whipped around. A beam of light, harsh and blinding, a cruel spotlight in the darkness, stabbed directly into my eyes, momentarily stealing my vision. Well, what do we have here? A voice, devoid of warmth, flat and chillingly bored, drawled from the blinding glare. Panic, cold and suffocating, a tidal wave of pure terror, flooded my veins. I tried to run, to turn and flee into the comforting anonymity of the darkness, but my legs felt like lead, rooted to the spot. Before I could even formulate a coherent thought, a strong, unyielding hand clamped onto my arm, yanking me forward with brutal force. I was shoved roughly, violently, against a grimy, cold brick wall, the rough surface biting into my back, scraping against my coat. Their faces, when they finally came into focus, illuminated by a tactical flashlight, were hard, unreadable masks, devoid of empathy or hesitation. These were not street thugs, these were men who killed without blinking, their eyes dead and empty. "Looks like we have a witness," one of them said, his voice flat, almost an afterthought, as if discussing the weather. Unfortunate for him. They dragged me, stumbling, my feet catching on unseen debris, across the uneven, frozen ground, towards the freshly dug earth. The scent of turned soil, rich and damp, mingled with something metallic, something sickly sweet and utterly horrifying. The hole was deep, a gaping maw in the earth, a black void that seemed to swallow the meager light. And at its bottom, a dark, motionless shape, undeniably human, sent a fresh wave of nausea churning in my stomach. This was it. I was going to be buried alive, or worse, thrown in with a stranger, my existence erased without a trace. My heart hammered against my ribs, a frantic bird trapped in a cage, beating a desperate rhythm against the confines of my chest. Every instinct screamed for escape, for a miracle, but there was nowhere to go, no one to hear my silent pleas. As they forced me to the very edge of the pit, the cold, unforgiving barrel of a gun pressed against my temple, a chilling certainty, absolute and unyielding, settled over me. This was the end. My life, my family, everything I had built, everything I was about to be extinguished in this desolate, forgotten place. Death, a tangible, icy presence, a cold breath on my skin, breathed down my neck, its shadow falling over me. In that final, desperate moment, as the first shovelful of dirt, heavy and dark, was poised to fall, a primal, desperate whisper from a lifetime ago, the old man's words, roared to life in my mind, cutting through the suffocating terror. If death itself breathes down your neck. A guttural, ancient sound, ripped from the deepest, most primal part of my being, a sound I didn't even know I remembered, escaped my lips. It was barely a whisper, a ragged gasp of sound, yet it felt like a thunderclap in the suffocating, frozen silence. And then, everything stopped. Not just the shovel, suspended mid-air, a handful of soil frozen in its descent, each grain a tiny, perfect sphere. Not just the hitman's finger, curled around the trigger, unmoving, a tableau of impending violence. The very air, thick with the scent of fear and damp earth, hung utterly still, each molecule suspended in an impossible tableau. The distant, faint city hum, the rustle of leaves in the unseen trees, even the frantic beat of my own heart, all ceased. I was adrift in an ocean of absolute stillness, a silent, frozen tableau of impending doom, a perfectly rendered, terrifying photograph come to life, yet devoid of life. Then, from the deepest shadows of the abandoned warehouse, a presence began to coalesce, a ripple in the fabric of the frozen world. It was tall, impossibly so, its form stretching towards the unseen, grimy roof, yet it moved with a fluid, silent grace that defied its sheer scale. It wasn't human. Its skin, if it could be called that, was like polished obsidian, absorbing all light, a void that seemed to drink the very essence of the surroundings. Yet somehow, impossibly, I could discern its outline, a terrifying, elongated silhouette, a monument to something ancient and terrifying. Where its face should have been, there was only a deeper void, two pinpricks of icy blue light, like distant, malevolent stars burning in the blackness. No features, no expression, just an ancient, silent power that radiated a profound, bone-chilling cold. It moved, not walking, but gliding, a ripple through the frozen air, a distortion in the fabric of reality. It approached the hitmen, its movements deliberate, unhurried, each motion a slow, terrifying ballet. The first man, the one with the shovel, was still frozen, a look of grim satisfaction, a predatory glint, on his face. The figure raised a hand, long, slender, ending not in fingers, but in razor-sharp, crystalline points that seemed to shimmer with an inner cold. It touched the man's chest, and with a soundless, sickening implosion, he simply collapsed inward, his form dissolving into a fine, black dust that hung suspended in the air like dark glitter, each particle a testament to his obliterated existence. The second man, the one holding the gun to my head, was next, his eyes still wide with a frozen, predatory intent. The figure simply extended a shadowy tendril from its form, a whip-like extension of pure darkness that wrapped around the man's neck with impossible speed. There was no struggle, no sound, no gasp, just a silent, crushing pressure that seemed to squeeze the very life out of him. His head twisted at an unnatural angle, a grotesque parody of life, and then, with a faint, almost imperceptible snap that echoed only in the profound silence, his body went limp, a marionette with severed strings. He crumpled to the ground, a heap of broken limbs, his eyes wide and vacant, still frozen in terror, staring at nothing. The third, the leader, stood frozen by the edge of the pit, a sneer, a mask of arrogant cruelty, still etched on his face. The obsidian figure paused before him, the two icy pinpricks of light seeming to bore into his very soul, stripping him bare. Then, with a gesture that was both elegant and utterly brutal, a movement of profound, cosmic indifference, it simply erased him. He didn't explode or collapse, he simply ceased to exist, vanishing as if he had never been, leaving behind only the lingering chill and the faint, acrid smell of ozone, a scent of something unnatural. The obsidian figure turned its featureless gaze upon me. The icy blue light seemed to penetrate my very being, stripping away all pretense, all fear, all thought, leaving only a raw, trembling awareness, a profound sense of insignificance. A voice, ancient and resonant, yet utterly silent, a thought rather than a sound, echoed directly in my mind, a command that vibrated through my bones, shaking me to my core: go. Do not look back. Do not speak of this. Then, as abruptly as it had begun, it snapped back. The world lurched forward with a violent, sickening jolt. The air filled with the sudden, overwhelming stench of ozone and something indescribably foul, a smell of death and something far worse. The shovel clattered to the ground with a loud clang. The gun fell from the second man's hand, hitting the frozen earth with a dull thud. The third man, the leader, was simply gone, a void where he had stood. The other two lay crumpled, broken things, their forms twisted in impossible, grotesque ways, their eyes staring blankly at the moonless sky. I didn't hesitate. The command, the terror, the sheer, unimaginable horror of what I had witnessed, propelled me forward. I scrambled away, not daring to look back, my legs burning with exertion, my lungs screaming for air, each breath a painful rasp. I ran until the industrial park was a distant, dark memory, a nightmare fading into the periphery, until the first faint, welcoming lights of the city appeared on the horizon, a promise of sanity. I stumbled through my front door, the familiar warmth of my home a shocking contrast to the cold horror outside. I collapsed onto the floor, my body racked with uncontrollable tremors, my mind a maelstrom of unspeakable images. A searing fever took hold, burning through me, consuming me from the inside out. For 2 days, I lay in a hospital bed, my mind a swirling vortex of nightmares and chilling images, the obsidian figure and its silent, brutal justice replaying endlessly behind my eyelids. The doctors spoke of extreme shock, a sudden viral infection, a nervous breakdown, but I knew. I knew what had truly happened. When I finally returned home, weak but undeniably alive, the news reports confirmed it. 3 men, known to authorities for their involvement in organized crime, found dead in an abandoned industrial park. No clear cause of death, no witnesses. Just a mystery, a baffling enigma that stumped the most seasoned investigators. The police were baffled, their theories grasping at straws. I closed my eyes, a wave of profound gratitude, tinged with a deep, unsettling fear, washing over me. The old man. His kindness, his warning, his impossible gift. He had saved me. And in doing so, he had shown me a glimpse of a world beyond understanding, a world where ancient forces intervened, where whispers could stop time and deliver gruesome, terrifying justice. It doesn't make sense to me. I'm an old man now, my hair white, my steps slow, my body a testament to the passage of time. That night, the mantra didn't just save my life, it fractured my understanding of reality, leaving me with a profound, unanswerable question. Was it a trick of the mind, a hallucination born of extreme stress? Or did I, for one impossible moment, step outside the flow of time and witness something truly terrifying and divine, something that defies all human comprehension? The memory is as vivid now as it was then, a constant, unsettling whisper in the back of my mind, a chilling reminder of the thin veil between our world and another. I've lived a full life, seen much, experienced much, but that single, inexplicable event remains the most profound mystery, the one truth I can never fully grasp. I want to give this mantra to someone deserving, someone who might understand, or at least, someone who might need its impossible power as much as I did, someone who might carry its burden into a future I will not see.